astronauts, this is Brandy and welcome back to Astro-Tarot Research. Today's reading is, what part of your personality do people remember most? That is right, we are finally doing this reading which you astronauts voted on, and I'm very excited to get into this today. Don't forget, if you want to vote on what pick a card will be next, check out those polls. And speaking of those polls on the community tab, you can also see the time in which I go live. I go live either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and that time will be posted on the community tab with the polls by Tuesday Eastern Standard Time, PM at night. That is correct. Also want to remind you, links to social media can be found below. That is all the reminders I have to say. Let us jump into these pals. We have pal number 1, pal number 2, pal number 3, pal number 4, pal number 5. So let's not waste any more time and just sit back, relax, and choose. Hey pal number 2, let's get started on your reading to see what part of your personality that people remember most, or that stands out to them. What are they thinking about when they think of you? All right, we have the King of Cups, we have the Emperor, we have the Seven of Pentacles, we have the Page of Wands, we have Ardra. Okay. So, Ardra is such interesting energy because anytime I get this card, there is so much pressure involved, especially when it comes to material success. And I was actually thinking about this with another card. I think one of the reasons that I definitely see Ardra people having a lot of material success, and at the same time being able to deal with that pressure, is because they have a particular strategy that they would like to implement, and it comes from experimentation. So let me pull these cards together here. And I think that is further reinforced by the fact that we have the Seven of Pentacles. So the Seven of Pentacles here, if you don't know, the Seven of Pentacles is all about reaping the rewards of your hard work and efforts, and then trying to make a decision on how to further invest and go further than you have gone before. You see the farmer here looking at this pile of pentacles and all the things that they have grown in their garden, and everything has been successful with the harvest. But the wonderful thing about the Seven of Coins, which is actually, it's a wonderful card in general, is that this is a time of reflection and pause. It's not just about like, okay, how can I invest further and continue to grow, which it is about, but it's also about like, how did I even what strategies did I use to gain that success? Because it's about being able to repeat that success. It's like, I need to have the formula in order to understand what went right and what went wrong. Like, if you've ever been in like a work environment or a project environment, or where you have to do projects, one thing people do is retrospectives and lessons learned. It's a time to pause and think about everything that went right or what went wrong, and how you can make sure to, I guess, implement those thought processes as you move forward in the future. I want to make sure that we keep getting the same results. I want to make sure that the harvest grows every single time. I want to make sure that I always end up, back at the place that I want to be. And I also want to make sure that I'm not repeating the same mistakes over and over again. It's not only about figuring out where you're going next, but it's also about trying to understand your strategies. So what people remember about you, pal number 2, the reason I go into my little tangents, is the fact that people remember that you are very strategic, that you're somebody who thinks about the big picture. You think about your past, you think about your present, you think about your future, and you think about how you can grow from there. You can see the farmer here. He's got one foot in the past and one foot in the future. Granted, this is the foot in the past and this is the foot in the future. And he's looking at things from all levels and all perspectives. And he's looking at them differently. And you know he's looking at them differently because if you ever notice, the Seven of Pentacles has two different colored boots here, sort of representing those different thought processes or even emotions around those thought processes. Okay, it's a little bit more so, okay, I have a plan for the future, I think, but then maybe there's an element of the past that's a little bit still in the dark, and I want to sit and analyze just exactly how I got to this point. I want to make sure that we're going forward in the right direction. So people feel like you are very strategic, that you are a planner, that you are organized, that you are a very reflective individual, that you're very thoughtful, that you look at things from different perspectives. There's a level of intelligence here. And this can also mean that you are come across very knowledgeable. When I've gotten the Emperor card to represent people and individuals, yes, they are very like calm, cool, collected, controlled. Not all the time though. But another aspect to this card is that they're very seasoned. So it's not just about someone exerting control all the time, but it's also having to do with being someone who has a lot of knowledge, who has a lot of input, who has a lot of experiences that makes them very seasoned. One thing that you may see about particular Archer people, individuals, is they may go through some wild circumstances very early on that helps them to understand different people and different ways in which they can not be so pleasant. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, Archer is the teardrop, guys. It isn't known for putting people through circumstances which can be particularly very, very tragic. I have definitely seen that a lot with Archer individuals where every time they tell me something, I'm just like, my goodness, like your life is going in a million different directions and none of them seem very pleasant, right? So but they do have a lot of success in that way. They're very focused. They're very as I mentioned before, strategic, very much so. Let me keep my mind on the money, got my money on the mind, right? It's like how can I continue to reap success? How can I move forward? So people look at you as a very like professional type of individual, someone who is, you know, the king of their own empire. Maybe you're even an entrepreneur. I don't know, you know, your whole backing, but there's a sense of accomplishment. When I have seen Archer people, they are generally very accomplished and highly skilled. Obviously not every Archer person is like this, but they're really great at generating that real world success and making sure that they are creating good business, that they're creating good relationships. And that goes back to what I was sort of talking about earlier about having to make sure that you are able to amplify results and learn from things. So part of that is creating good relationships with other people. And we have to remember Archer is in Gemini. It is at that center point of Gemini. It is right in the middle here, taking up most of the space. The sign of generally business, which is why I kind of focused a lot on business as well. Granted, I was focused more so on business based on these cards, but Archer is the sign in the sign of Gemini, a sign of business, the sign of relationships, the sign of communication. And so one thing that Archer people will stress is their relationships with other people and making sure that, you know, I'm going to do something for this individual so that they can, you know, 5 years down the line, 3 years down the line, 3 months down the line, can return on that investment. So it's not just about investing physical things, but it's about investing in people around you. Who's the type of person that I want to invest my time and energy into? And this goes back into what this goes into what I'm saying right now. I did a study on Ardra individuals, and they were seen as sort of always being representative of being genies, which is actually very interesting because you're like, why are they being representative genies? Well, if you think about Ardra, as I mentioned, Ardra is that sign of relationships and business and keeping up those relationships and investing in them. So they're seen as genies because they will do things for other people. They will grant them their wishes. They will be more generous in order to gain that back in the long run and reap those rewards, right? So they're saying, I'm going to help you out so that in the future, when you come across me or if I need something, you're going to help me out instead. And I've actually heard at least 2 or 3 Ardra individuals say this, and that's overgive. So these are the people who are going to be the big tippers. These are going to be the people who are going to always come for you for some solid advice. These are the people that if you DM about an issue, that they're going to answer you. They're going to show that sense of empathy and care, and they're going to try to provide some solid advice. They do have a heart and they do care. Okay, a lot of Ardra individuals will want to amplify and uplift other people. Okay, I do want to emphasize that. So there's an aspect of your personality that is very much like, how can I uplift others? How can I provide advice for others? How can I ensure that I'm creating relationships and connections with others that are meaningful and long lasting? And people will remember that. This is the placement, Ardra. And I've seen several Ardra individuals say this, where they always say, overgive. You know, this is like, I'm gonna be a big tipper. I'm going to provide you with a loan. I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z sort of, you know, money or things along the lines of that. It's like, I'm just going to give, and it doesn't matter if you don't return on that investment or you don't return or give anything back at the moment. But I know potentially in the future, if there's a situation that I need something, that I can sort of ask you for that favor, ask you for, you know, any sort of loan or advice or job recommendation or anything along the lines of that, or help with something, then I know that there's a strong possibility that somebody at least is going to return on that favor, right? Makes sense. If somebody does something good for you, don't you want to do certain things back, right? Not all people. But at some point, some individual more likely will want to give back. So people find you to be very generous. They find you to be very emotionally supportive. They find you to be very mature, that you have a very strong logical mindset, that you don't get swept away with your emotions. You like to keep those things in control, or you more than likely are not going to show that up front. The Emperor likes to keep strong face. Don't get me wrong, the Emperor can get nervous, but you know, he doesn't like to show that he's worried or nervous. He wants to like remain strong for his people, or the patriarchal archive of remaining strong, which is a little bit more stoic, right? So there is that sense of like, I don't want anyone to see these weak points or these points of vulnerability in me, so people will see you as that. They see you as this person who that they can go to and lean on, and they're like, oh my gosh, this person is so strong. I never even see them sweat. I never even see them stress out. Like, they just seem to be able to just handle things, right? So there's a lot of like power that people will see within you, and people will see you as generally like a sense of authority, a leader, somebody who takes charge. You are not following directions here at any point. Don't get me wrong, you're open to ideas with the Page of Wands here, because obviously the Page of Wands wants to learn and grow and develop, and thus at some point they have to take on this student role, right? But for the most part, people see you as somebody who follows their own path and has a strong sense of purpose. That is what people remember the most about your personality. Oh my God, I just realized that we have purpose on the card. That's so Ardra, right? Purpose, aim, curious. It's like all the things I just mentioned, right? So the cards are really aligning up with this sort of Ardra feel to it. And you may have no Ardra placements at all, or maybe even strong Rahuvian placements, or such to be sure, or Swati or whatever. But people are noticing that you're sort of embodying these qualities that can be presented in this nakshatra here. But that is something that is very, very noticeable about you pile number 2, that you have this strong resolve, that you have this generous mindset, that you are very open, that you are emotionally intelligent, that you are mature, that you do have a lot of empathy, and you have a lot of power behind your voice, and that you come at people, you're not talking kind of harsh to them. With this King of Cups and this Emperor here, you try to word things politely, which is very much like Ardra. Ardra's like, okay, let's pay attention to the social rules here. We can't just go off lines and say everything we want to say all the time. Don't get me wrong, maybe with friends or family, or if somebody really irritates you, you may pull on this Page of Wands and just say, I'm gonna just say it like it is. So you may pop off at times, but like for the most part, you're like, I'm gonna remain controlled, and I'm going to keep this person in mind. It reminds me of like, I saw that interview where Kendall Jenner was talking about how her acne, and she was saying how she would go to school and she would try to put on makeup to like cover her acne. And every day, I think, or every other day, she would ask her sister Kylie and say, oh my goodness, like, is it noticeable? You think people can see it? And Kylie, being very Swati, very Rahuvian ruled, will say something along the lines of, no, you can't even see it. Obviously, the pimples were super obvious, right? But she's not going to say that to her. And so people feel that same way about your communication. Yes, Rahu is known as being like the manipulator, the liar, and things like that. But, you know, sometimes little white lies can't hurt anyone, right? When it comes to a certain situation like that. And so people may feel like you may spare their feelings. They may feel like you have that aspect to your personality where you're just like, oh, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. So I'm going to say that, yeah, you can't even notice it. You look beautiful as always, right? Things along the lines of that. And people will remember that about your personality. They will also remember your sense of adventure, your willingness to try new things, your willingness to be a risk taker. You have to remember, like I said, Ardra is like that birthplace of the, well, technically Rahu in general, but Ardra is the first step of Rahu, that birthplace of that logical, analytical mind. Like, how can I immerse myself in the material world? Is the head of the snake, and K2 being the tail, so the headless one. And you can even see that in K2 people's behavior, where they can kind of make very reckless decisions and things along the lines of that. But particularly Ardra is going to be a little bit more so like, how can I think things through? How can I make sure that I am positioning myself to be in a great spot in order to achieve success. And there was something that I particularly wanted to mention. Oh yes, with the risk taking involved and as well. One way to ensure that, sorry about number 2, there are so many disruptions, very Ardra, which I didn't even go into yet, where, you know what, let me finish what I was about to say. The risk taking involved. So one thing that happens when you have take a lot of risk is that you have a lot of different experiences, and having those experiences obviously will help your sort of knowledge base and give you a better understanding and a better perspective, so that you can act in a way that benefits you in the future. Talking to people, being more helpful, being chatty, being great at small talk, you know, trying to connect. It is all about building those relationships when it comes to you. And not only that, but you can get to know yourself. Granted, I will say Rahu placements tend to be a little bit more outwardly focused, but yeah, knowing yourself may be more of like a K2 spiritual thing. But anyway, as I was going into it, there is an aspect of getting to know yourself as well. And you may even have a few quirks, right? None of us are perfect. We all have a different path or interests and things along the lines of that. But Ardra people and Rahuvian people in general can be known to kind of have like some hidden quirky things that, you know, they may hide because they may feel like it's not going to be acceptable or something along the lines of that. So I will say, kind of goes into what I was saying earlier, where you may not show people those aspects to yourself which aren't as socially acceptable. Maybe nothing's wrong with it, but it may not be socially acceptable, right? So that's something that can be like a part of it. So there's a part of you that people feel like, all right, I feel like this person has an element of mystery to them. So people will feel like there's this mysterious aura about you, and that is a part of your personality. Back to what I was going to say about Lord of the Interruptions. When I go through particularly like an Ardra month or an Ardra year, like if I pull the card and I'm like, oh, how's my year going to be? And I get Ardra, I know that this year is going to come with a lot of sort of disruptions or a lot of moments that are just like, oh no, not this. It's very Ardra-like. You have to remember, Gemini is 8th from the 8th house, right? So when you have something that is 8th from the 8th house, it's like a higher version or another version of that house, right? So 8th house is about unexpected things, things that are just, you know, out of the box and sudden that you just have to deal with or something. And so one thing that people will feel like that is memorable about your personality is the fact that you've been through different circumstances, and maybe you've even talked about them, that seem to just come out of nowhere and you just had to deal with them. And you're just, and it's it's going to be a unique circumstances. It's going to be something that is just, or extreme. So extreme or unique circumstances that you may have had to deal with. People are just like, every time I talk to this person, there is some story going on here and they have been through X, Y, and Z. And like, what is going on? Like, so they may feel like you have a story in different circumstances that are just like totally out of the box. I was just listening to a video a few weeks ago by an Ardra individual about the first time they went to move out and they needed a roommate, and the roommate totally ended up being like a nightmare, and they had to call the police on them. It was like a whole thing. And I was like, this is such a crazy tale, right? But that's very much on par with that type of energy. So you may have a lot of stories that catch people off guard. They're like, you had to go through that, you had to deal with that situation. So it makes you a great storyteller in that regard. So that is what I have for you, pile number 2. I'm going to end it there. Hopefully this resonates. If not, feel free to choose a new pile or new reader. Either way, I'm very happy you stopped by. Don't forget, if you want to ask me a question, I go live. That's either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and that time will be posted on the community tab, Eastern Standard Time at night. Also, the polls are back, so if you want to contribute or give your opinion on what videos will be coming next on this channel, all you have to do is vote on that poll, and I appreciate all your feedback and support. So thank you for watching. Au revoir. Hey pal, number 2, let's get started on your reading and what part of your personality people remember most. We have the 8 of Cups, the 5 of Swords, the 5 of Wands. You're a tough cookie, pal number 2. The 4 of Wands and Ashleisha. Okay, we don't want no problems with you, pal number 2. So the part of your personality people remember most is the fact that you're not exactly, how do I say this? I don't want to offend you, pal number 2, but people don't find you to be extremely agreeable. When we have this 5 of Wands and this 5 of Swords, with these being about conflict, what happens is the person kind of wants to do things their way or has their own perspective. And so people will feel like you will fight for your perspective or to have your influence in, to have your impact, to maybe even have things done your way. Like you're always trying to convince someone to maybe do things in a way that you prefer. Now, I have definitely seen that type of behavior with Ashleisha individuals where, particularly in the workplace, depending on the Ashleisha individual, they can be a little bit nitpicky. And it can come across to others as being very much like unnecessary. Not to say that that's you. Not to say that that's you. But if you do relate to that, where you have a very particular way that you like to do things, and when people do things outside of that particular way, you may say something about it, well then people are going to remember that aspect about you. Now if you don't feel like you resonate with this pile, feel free to choose a different one, or maybe I'm about to read it for you, but I gotta keep it 100%. You know, if I have 2 5s here, people are not remembering the most pleasant things about you all the time. Maybe you're too honest. Maybe it is that you don't want to hold back with what you have to say. That is very Astrology type of energy. To just kind of speak what's on their mind. And then sometimes people, if you're just like a bit of a talker, like let's say you're not conflict oriented or combative or disagreeable or something like that, I can get this combination of cards for somebody who can be a bit of a talker. So this can be like, okay, I'm talking a lot and I may interrupt individuals. So you see this battle of individuals going on. It's like people over talking each other and things like that. So you could be seen as a bit of a talker, which is something that happens a lot with a lot of mercurial placements. And you may not even have strong mercurial placements, though I doubt it with this pal. You probably do have some Mercury influence going on. This can represent that people may find you to be very chatty, that you like to lead the conversations, that you may want to talk while people are working or busy or doing things and things along the lines of that. There's just a lot of stimulation going on. Positive things that we see here is when I see fives, definitely 100%, it's like I'm not afraid to have those hard conversations. I'm not going to run away from the truth or what I have to say. I'm going to speak my piece. And these are all great things, right? There are a lot of times or individuals in general where people just don't want to speak what's on their mind. They don't want to say what they have to say, but you are coming out and you're being very honest and you're being very direct. You're not the type of person who can pretend for very long, okay? Not with these cards here. You're just like, goodbye to pretending, goodbye to any nonsense. I'm here to, say what I have to say. And if it makes other people feel a certain type of way, then it makes them feel a certain type of way. But this is my perspective, and this is the thought process that I am coming with. Another combination of this cards can be that you are trying to learn to balance a little bit more, because we do go from this 5 of Wands to this 4 of Wands. So maybe you recognize some times where you might be over talking or maybe like overstep. We all have those moments where we're just like, oh, I didn't mean to like speak over that person. I didn't mean to interrupt. Let me just like pull back and let everyone have this fair share of the pie or things along the lines of that. People will also remember that they may just find you to be a generally competitive person. So if it's not anything to do with, maybe an aspect of your personality that people may feel like can be, all right, this person has got a strong opinion, well, then this is going to relate to being a very ambitious person, succeeding at all costs, doing what you have to do to strive and be on top, being a hard worker, being a go-getter. People may note those qualities in you. They may feel like you're somebody who's always busy, who always has something to do. So this combination can represent sort of like being a busybody, being very sociable, having a good amount of friends or people that you interact with or meet with, or how you entertain yourself, whatever the case may be. But it represents just saying, hey, I would like to just learn a lot. I would like to grow a lot. And a good way to grow is like, meet people, talk to you, being very socially busy. That's something like that. It could be representing that you're fighting for connections and fighting to make stable relationships, and you're good about weeding out the people and reassessing whether people are right or the right fit for being in your life. That's something that is a very strong possibility that people are really, really remembering when it comes to your personality. There's a lot of vigor and excitement here. Like, you don't really come across as kind of like a laid back individual. I mean, don't get me wrong. People do find aspects of your personality to be fun, but they find you to be a little bit more excitable. Okay, I do want to say that. One thing that they do note and that they remember the most about your personality, we did start with this Eight of Cups. And we all know that the Eight of Cups is all about moving on, saying goodbye, going to a better place, elevating. So they feel like you're the type of person to always want to improve themselves, to always want to level up, to always want to get to the next bigger and better thing. And that's another reason why I mentioned the ambition when it comes to you, pal number 2. It's the fact that you're not afraid to change and you're not afraid to grow. And the fact that we have 2 5s also reinforces this idea that you're here to develop, change, and grow. And that you have a strong level of ambition. When we think about like Ashleisha and the symbolism when it comes to Ashleisha and its connection to the snake, there's a lot of symbolism connected to snakes and riches, and particularly with Mercury ruled nakshatras, which makes sense because I think Jesta is one of the most popular ruled nakshatras when it comes to like billionaires, which is another Mercury ruled nakshatra. But Ashleisha does pretty decent itself. But anyway, it just reminds me of the fact that that snake is connected to riches and sort of connects to being able to obtain some sort of level of success, wealth, or recognition. When we have these cards here, sometimes I can get it to be like fighting for validation or wanting that sort of external validation. There's not a lot of internal questioning beyond the Eight of Cups. The rest of the cards kind of focus more so on the interactions and validations or conversations or with other people in that regard. Not to say that there isn't some element of reflection, but to me it feels like you're more people oriented, you're more external oriented. And if you don't see yourself being that way, people view your personality that way. They're like, wow, you are very sociable. You know a lot of people. You talk to a lot of people. Things along the lines of that is what I see here. You definitely have a lot of different talents, and people do feel like you are a talented individual. But like I said, you have very strict boundaries on what you will accept and what you will sort of like keep into your life and what you feel is the standard you want for yourself. I love how the card says sharp and dreadful. That can be very, very Ashleisha, where I kind of mentioned before about the criticism. I'm not trying to put you off, pal number 2, but there's a lot of energy here where people may feel like you can be a little critical. I'm not gonna lie and skirt around it. It's a strong force when it comes to this pal. But like I said, you like to clear the air. You like to make sure that everything that can be said is being said. One thing that people may feel is that you don't always really show all your cards, that you're someone who is going to be more someone who's going to take a little bit more of a calculated risk. You're not going to share all your plans with everyone. You're not going to go into too many details. You're not going to put your whole life there on blast. Because you just feel like you don't want that energy in your life, I'm guessing. But people will note that about you. They feel like, oh, this person may know a lot about me, but I don't feel like I know enough about them in particular. And that's something that is very, very interesting. You like to make sure that you know and have an understanding of the people around you. And it's almost like you just like to be aware of everyone and what they have going on. Possibly just interested in their lives to help you build an understanding of them. Maybe to help you reflect on who you are in particular. But whatever the case may be, it does have to deal with wanting to be invested in other people. And maybe even some point people may feel like you may compare yourself to other people. Not really sure who, but this is definitely a card of comparison. Same with the Five of Swords to some extent. They know that you're not afraid to take a loss because you feel like it can help you develop and it can help you grow. One thing that people will note about you is that you do like to give second chances. You do like to give opportunities for change. You do like to give opportunities for development. Like, you understand that sometimes people make mistakes. So people do like that part about your personality in particular. But you may find it hard to trust other people because these two fives here and the 8 of Cups, they've been through stuff. And so people may not feel like you open up a lot about yourself because you may have had those betrayals or etc. in the past, whatever the case may be. But they do find that aspect of your personality they feel like this person doesn't trust people a lot. This person doesn't let a lot of people in. They're very tight-knit about exactly who they're letting into their space. Okay? That is just something that I have seen. One thing they note about you, though, is that you can be a bit of a romantic. I do get this Four of Wands card to obviously represent the marriage, the romance, the celebrations, and things along like that. And Ashleisha is a placement that they'll act a little bit like, oh, they're so kind of heart up and have this layer and mask and things along the lines of that because they don't want to let people in. Being vulnerable is hard, right? But one thing I've seen by them is they are the biggest romantics ever. Like 100%, when they fall hard. So people may feel like you have this sort of love bug energy to you, romance loving aspect to your personality where you may be in love with love. Okay, so that's something that people will pick up when it comes to your personality. Doesn't matter if you try to hide it or fight it, that is what people view you as, and that is how they're seeing your personality, and that's how they remember it. So that is what I have for you, pile number 2. Maybe this wasn't what you wanted to hear, but this is what I'm seeing here with the cards. You are a thoughtful individual, and I think everyone recognizes that, the deep thinking abilities that you have. And so that is something important to say and to note. But I'm going to leave it at that. If this doesn't resonate with you, feel free to choose a new pile, or maybe I'm not the reader for you. Either way, I'm very happy you stopped by. Don't forget, if you want to ask me a question, I go live every Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and that time will be posted by Tuesday night, Eastern Standard Time on the community tab. The polls are back. You can vote on them. So also check out the community tab for that weekly, and you can vote on what reading is coming next. And I will see you next time. Au revoir. Hey, pal, number 3, let's get started on your reading and what part of your personality people remember the most. We have the 8 of Pentacles, the 3 of Cups, the 7 of Cups, Temperance, and Pusha. All right. So, what part of your personality do people remember the most? So, right off the bat, we have this 8 of Pentacles, student mastering their craft type of energy going on here. So one thing that stands out, I guess the initial first thing people think of is your attention to detail and your attention to refinement or even leveling up. You are more than likely the type of person to really invest a lot of time in the things that they value, whether that is you spending a lot of time, upgrading your looks, or going to school and leveling up your intelligence, or even focusing on a hobby or a skill or a craft or whatever the case may be, whether that is your drawing, whether that is, you're a content creator, whether that is you're into cooking, whatever the case may be, this is a hobby centered type card. And if you're not really hobby focused, well, then this is what I was saying before. It's about investing a lot of time and energy into leveling up yourself, improving yourself, better yourself, refining yourself, turning from this swamp creature into a beautiful princess. Very transformative type of energy. And people remember that about your personality. It is always about, how can I get to the next step? how can I get to the next level? How can I do better? How can I do more? When we have the Eight of Pentacles cards, you can see on the side, on this tree here, and near the foot of the bench is all of this little artist's finished work. And currently they are focusing on another piece, and at the same time they are planning for the future. That is kind of like similar to you. You have this list of accolades and things that you've accomplished and things that you've done and things that you've experienced. And then you're currently working on something at the moment. And then at the same time, you have something on the product backlog, on the back burner, ready to get done. You're always about investing, growing, doing more, doing better, transformation, change. There's so much going on when it comes to how you carry yourself and how you choose to live your life. And people remember that about you. It's never about staying in one place or staying stagnant. It's about how can I invest my future so that it aligns the best with the values and the life that I want to live. How can I best dedicate my time and energy into that? And the thing about this Eight of Pentacles energy is that people may sort of associate you with being sort of like a work-oriented type of person. They don't really see you as much as a person who wants to sit still, but this is not to say you don't enjoy yourself, because we do have this Three of Cups energy going on here. But before we get into that, I do want to say what I have to say. They see you as somebody who can be very work focused, very work or goal oriented, whatever your goal may be, even if you don't have a job, even if you're like a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, whatever the case may be. You're always about like, how can I knock this off my to-do list? How can I make sure this is done faster? How can I make sure this is more refined? How can I make some improvements on this? It is always about improvement, bettering, and upgrading so that things are seamless. And that is something that people do not forget about you. They also remember that you're the type of person who really reads the fine print and really looks into the details. You know, kind of reminds me of how, you know, people are always kind of like signing contracts without reading the full terms and conditions. You might be that person to actually go through and read the terms and conditions when it comes to what is being presented in front of you before you sign your name to it. That is very Eight of Pentacles energy. I know personally I'm that type of person. I remember one time going into a spa. Before you go into this like spa, they make you sign this sheet where, you know, they tell you all the different terms and conditions and things along the lines of that. I remember being the only person in line who actually stood there for about 10 minutes reading that sheet. It was actually funny. People looked at me like I was crazy. But that is very much more than likely your personality, looking at the details, looking at the fine pictures. Same thing might be when you're going shopping. You might be the type of person who's going to look for any nicks in the clothing. You're more than likely the type of person who's going to look for the type of fabric it is made with, you know, research any materials, how long things last. It's like you like to stay informed, you like to stay knowledgeable, and you like to make sure that you're getting the best for your buck. There's many avenues you could take this Eight of Pentacles energy, but the whole central focus is all about being detail oriented, refined, and perfecting a skill or noticing things, okay? Being very attuned to your surroundings. But speaking of being attuned to your surroundings, as I was mentioning, you're not all work. You're not all this stiff type of person who doesn't want to have a good time. Three of Cups is all about fun and enjoyment and having this great party type of energy going on here. And when I see Pusha here, it almost reminds me of a little bit of like glamour in a sense, because a lot of Pusha energy is kind of focused on, how do I say this? Saturn's energy likes luxury. I know it's crazy because Saturn's seen as like the servant planet, but you have to think about the fact that in order to be someone who is a hard worker, who gains success, you're kind of thrusted more so into a servant roles. You can even sort of look at how at least the US government system should work. The people who are in power are empowered because they are supposed to serve others. So similar to that Saturnian energy of being in a position of power, there is an element of luxury to you, an element of liking to party, enjoy yourself, to enjoy the finer things in life, especially since we have this Seven of Cups here. Seven of Cups is like my options buffet. I want this thing, that thing, and the third going on here. So it definitely reminds me when I look at all of this energy together of wanting to have your share of opportunities. You don't want to be stifled and sort of do the same thing over and over and over again. For example, you have certain people who maybe they have like a routine for themselves. They might be the type of person, okay, every Friday night I go to this bar and we do this pop quiz, or what do you call it when they're trivia? We do this trivia night at this bar every Friday and we hang out with friends. It's a cool time. That's really great and fun and fantastic. But you, pal number 3, you like to switch it up a little bit. When we have these two cards coming together, and then we have Pusha, which can relate a lot to like different transformations and things along the lines of that. It kind of becomes about, what's the word I want to say here? There's a lot of energy of wanting to experience different aspects of life. You want to be able to go out there and say, oh, I'm going to try glass blowing. I'm going to be the person who tries to learn how to make buttercream flowers for my cakes, or whatever the case you want to do. I want to learn about nail art. I want to learn how to make candles. Like, it's a very sort of like explorative type of energy, especially with the Temperance here, opening itself up to meaning tolerance and acceptance and being open-minded and things along the lines of that. So you're open to experiencing new things. So people feel like you are that random person who's just going out on a random, Tuesday night to just do something like, spontaneous and out of the box. Like, oh, I'm going to go to, drive a race car or something along the lines of that. It's just about being open to more fun and exciting experiences. You keep your mind open in regards to that era. And like I said, you do enjoy like a lot of bit of the finer things. I follow quite a bit of Pusha people, and one of them I follow, she does a lot of like this dating series. People call her like, the Carrie Bradshaw of the internet, who also has a Saturn placement, not Pusha, but Uttara Bhadrapada. Just Sarah Jessica Parker, that is. So the energy becomes about like having a lot of like lavish experiences, liking the finer things in life, being able to also have some sort of obsession, usually with some sort of material object. The Pusha people I've seen, they'll kind of focus on either clothing, I've seen perfume, I've seen wigs even, a lot of experimentation with the looks as well, and things along the lines of that. But maybe you have a particular thing that you like. Maybe you're a shoe person, maybe you're a coat person, whatever the case may be, but that becomes a part of your personality that people will remember most. Your value for things that maybe something particularly material. Not to say that's the only thing you value, because we do have spiritual elements here, but I don't want to just keep going on and on about the same thing. Pusha's energy is very interesting because obviously it can be a very honest type of energy if it chooses to be. It's usually an energy that can bring a little bit more balance to the face, but for most part, when I've seen all the Pusha people together, it's usually they are very tough as nails. This is very much so like tough love going on here. Very big sister type of energy. Let me watch out for you. But there's also this vibe, as I was mentioning before. Yes, there's a love of the material and the glamorous, but when I've seen Pusha here, there's also this intrinsic trance-like nature where they're sort of drawn to the spiritual side of things. They're drawn to the more esoteric, and think of like, Nelly Furtado type of vibes. And if people even still know who she is, where she's like into sort of like this spiritual type of hippie type of vibe that you can get with Pusha's energy going on here. So there may even be, obviously, I mean, if you're picking on this pile, if you're watching these videos, people really remember the spiritual side to you as well. And then I do want to mention that if you're interested in different like foreign countries, foreign languages, different subjects. You have a very diverse group of friends. I only say that because we have the Three of Wands, Three of Cups, and the Temperance card here. And these two combinations together can represent having a very like diverse group of friends, or like friends from different countries, from different ethnicities, friends from different religions. Like it's very like, okay, this person has a wide circle of friends in which they hang out with that you may not typically expect, right? But it's just like keeping this wide open pasture for those who want to be friends with you, connecting like on more of a spiritual level rather than, hey, you know, I'm from this country, you're from this country too, let's connect. It's like, okay, we vibe off of different things. Okay, that's the vibe going on here. Another thing about Push's energy is, as I mentioned before, people could remember that if you are really into sort of like celebrity gossip and things along the lines of that, people will definitely remember that about your energy as well. And there's also an element of sense of humor here. But they're so funny because, you know, Push is not really known for being their humor. I think when I've seen them be the most humorous is generally people like, weirdly enough, I know Saturn's energy is known for being very strict, but people kind of like when they're like mean to people. So people they may find you funny when you're mad. I just want to say that, and they may be something that they remember about your personality in general, or if you have a temper, that is something that can be very much so instilled in people's minds, especially if you just come across as like you have a righteous point of view. And I emphasize the righteousness because we have the Temperance card here. So you may be somebody who's very passionate about what you believe and be very opinionated in that sense. And people will remember that aspect very, very strongly about your personality. It's more so, I cannot stand on injustice. I cannot stand people bullying the weak. I want to stand up for those who may be suffering, and just having sort of sense of righteous anger towards those who are treating others wrong, who may have treated you wrong. That type of energy is what people are remembering about you. And then lastly, we obviously want to go into this daydreamy type of energy going on here. You know, this daydreaming Seven of Cups energy can be all about like, I want to enjoy myself. I want to have a good time. I want to give in to temptation. And at the same time, I'm a dreamer. I'm very much like laissez-faire. Like, I don't want to have too many responsibilities. It's interesting that we have these two cards here because one card is so productive, but then on the other hand, you have this other like, let's roll in a field of daisies type of energy. So people notice that balance between you and your behavior. And maybe that's another reason why you got Temperance, because people can see that you have that balance within your personality to be this work hard, play hard type of person. And it's a very good balance here. Lastly, this is not really related to your personality, but more than likely, people obviously remember your appearance. Something about your something about your appearance gives very much glamorous, put together, very refined, very particular about what you wear, and even maybe a little bit quirky with the Seven of Cups here, because the Seven of Cups can be very experimental and very kind of like what's the word? Eccentric sometimes with the Seven of Cups, because they're trying out new options. They're trying out new things. So something about the appearance, even though that's not necessarily your personality or things along the lines of that. One thing they do want to see is that you are open to changing your mind, as well as taking in new information. None of these cards really give stubborn. A lot of them deal with how can I refine my thinking so that it aligns best with what I truly value and who I am. So nothing in this energy is stuck and rigid. I do want to say there, despite, you know, Push Your energy. Push Your energy can sometimes get in a rut and get stuck, but generally, at some point, it's going to get to a breaking point where they are forced to evolve and forced to change. You know, from my experience, I've seen a lot of Pusher people be very insecure, and then they go through sort of like a transformation, and which they will be, what's the word? in which they will sort of evolve and become more confident and recognize where those insecurities stem from. That is something that I've seen very common with Pusha people as well. But then there's also a sense of personableness to you. Very open, very fun, very like cutesy type of energy. So that is what I have for you, pile number 3. Hopefully this resonates. If not, feel free to comment below, or choose a new pile, choose a new reader if this doesn't resonate, and then also comment below. That's what I meant to say. Switch the order of those words and sentences there. And then what else did I want to say? Yeah, don't forget, if you want to ask me a question, go check out the lives, and that is posted, like I said, every Tuesday night Eastern Standard Time, the time that I go live, and I go live Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So that is what I have for you. Au revoir. Hey pal, number 4, let's get started on the part of your personality that people remember most. We have the 10 of Swords, we have the Knight of Wands, we have the King of Swords, we have the 6 of Pentacles reversed, and we have Punarvasu. So right off the bat, I feel like you are a very generous person with Punarvasu here. Punarvasu is generally known for being a placement that likes to give, that continues to be generous, have a lot of generosity towards individuals, wanting to take care of people who may be less fortunate, but there is a tendency to maybe overgive and to overextend when we have this 6 of Pentacles reversed. You know, 6 of Pentacles upright is all about reciprocity, give and receive. When we have it here, it's either just take, or give. So you may be giving a lot more of your time, your energy, your efforts, your resources than you are receiving back, actually. So pouring a lot of energy into something, someone, or something, and not getting too much back. People will remember that for you. This can also represent giving when you have nothing. So you may not even have like a whole bunch to offer, but you still want to be able to help and to, you know, give the shirt off your back or something like that. You know, it represents like, hey, I don't got a lot to give, but I still want to be able to extend an offering hand, and things along the lines of that. Just looking at these cards here, you know, there's a lot of ways to read it, but because we have these surrounding cards of Punarvasu and the King of Swords, and this is nestled in between that, it makes me think that it's more so the generosity side than some other interpretation that might be going on. 10 of Swords, though, however, can represent a part of your personality which people remember, which can be a little bit more so a little bit solemn, okay? So you may come across to people as feeling a little bit more tired, a little bit worn down, a little bit more burnt out. People may feel that you may be overextending yourself, and this could be part of that overextension, the fact that you so generous with time and efforts and things along the lines of that. So people get this feeling from you that just feels drained. They just feel like, oh man, this person has a lot going on. Sometimes I can get the 10 of Swords to represent sarcasm, some sort of like self-deprecating humor, anything to do with woe is me type of energy comes to mind when I see this. It just reminds me of how Jupiterian placements often, they're known for their generosity, but sometimes socially I've noticed that they can sort of put themselves in sort of like this victim role. Like everyone gets, you know, love and popularity and da 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 da, but me, or whatever the case. You could throw any other situation in there. I have seen that. So you may even have some characteristics. I don't know if you notice this or don't notice it. Whatever the case may be, maybe this doesn't even apply to you. This might just apply for like a small percentage of you, but you may have some sort of victim mindset, okay? You know, I said it, I threw it out there, don't beat me up, all right? Sometimes the 10 of Swords can represent just making a mountain out of a molehill. That we have a small problem and then you times it by 20,000. You multiply it, okay? And it's just not that serious, okay? So sometimes people may feel like you may have a flair for the dramatic. Like if you're not this woe is me victim mentality, then possibly you're just very descriptive and very dramatic and very like powerful when it comes to your words and communication. You didn't just arrive at work late. You rush through traffic. You beat those stoplights, you swerve through lanes. Like it's a very dramatic sort of speech. So people may remember these things about how you speak and what you choose to speak about. Especially when we have this Knight of Wands energy. Knight of Wands likes to keep it fun. It likes to keep the flair. It likes to keep dramatic. It likes to keep things, keep things, what's the word for it? Exciting, the very exciting and descriptive way you choose to interact with other people and describe things. The speech is coming through very strongly when it comes to you, pal number four. Ooh, I almost said one. Pal number 4. Because we have all this sword energy here with the King of Swords and the Ten of Swords. And so we know something about the way that you're communicating and how you're going about communicating can come across as a very powerful memory. They're like, oh, I remember this person. They used to talk about the latest TikTok trends, or they used to talk about showing like different Instagram posts, and they used to talk to me about I don't know, software engineering, whatever the case you like to talk about. People remember those things because you talk about it with such enthusiasm, but at the same time, you do like to kind of bond with people in a way over like what's the word I'm looking for? A mutual enemy. Like that is definitely a bonding technique, and everyone knows it, from politicians to marketing to whatever the case, to movies. You choose a common enemy, and that is one way to bond. An example of that could be like, oh gosh, I can't stand coffee, makes my stomach hurt, triggers my anxiety, dries out my skin. And then another person's like, oh, I can't stand coffee either. Like coffee is just the worst. Like I don't even like the taste or the smell of coffee. And boom, you bonded over that common enemy. So people may feel like you tend to bond with people over things that you may not like, dislike, and things along the lines of that, especially with this Ten of Swords. Ten of Swords, I very much so connect to negative thinking. If this was reversed or something along the lines of that, I would read it another way. I'm trying to go in with the most positive perspective because I definitely want to give a positive perspective for you guys. I mean, otherwise, the worst case scenario, they just think you have a sour personality, but I don't think everyone who clicks on this thing has a sour personality. I think this is more so kind of like a flair for the dramatics, and more being so like, let's bond over the things we don't like, I don't like headphones that are Bluetooth. I only like the old school wireless kind. Things along the lines of that. So it's very much this type of bonding experience that people may feel like, oh yeah, we both didn't like that thing. We both thought that movie sucked, right? Another thing with this Knight of Wands energy, Knight of Wands is very get in and get out. So people feel like you are just quick, fast, and in a hurry all the time. You don't like to sit still. You don't like to just chill. I mean, maybe you do, but like when it comes to like the party settings, the group interactions, yeah, you can hold your own in a conversation. We know that from the King of Swords that you have a great amount of intelligence, and people will notice that about you. The King of Swords is fair. He is just. He is well spoken. He knows how to properly communicate his ideas. He provides examples. He knows how to explain things to different levels of understanding. It's like, I can give you verbal communication. I can give you a presentation. I can give you some sort of audio, video, visuals, whatever the case. Like, I know how to communicate my point. So people feel like you're really great with communicating with all different types of people, but you don't want to do it too long, You can kind of get a little bit bored. You kind of get a little sidetracked. It's kind of like having this sort of brain where you a short attention span. That's the word I was going to use. Having a little bit of a shorter attention span. You're just like, okay, we've had this conversation. Let's move on to the next. It's like you're able to have like 10, 20 conversations in the span of like 30 minutes. There's just a lot going on information wise, and a lot that you are technically ingesting. In fact, you may not even share all that you know. You might even keep a few secrets, especially with this 10 of Swords here. That is the card of betrayal. So definitely people feel like you keep guarded, you keep your walls up. The King of Swords, he is somebody who can be an open person, but he still likes to protect himself. He's not going to be super open with everyone that he meets all the time. That sword is there to protect him in a way. And I often find very Jupiterian people to be very skilled and highly intelligent in a way. I typically enjoy when Jupiterian people speak because they have a wealth of knowledge. I mean, after all, Jupiter is the guru, and if you've ever spoken to just multiple Jupiterian people over and over again, you'll more than likely notice a trend. I was going to say, at least with the ones who are actively, engaged within society, trying to educate themselves. Obviously, you have Jupiterian individuals who may not be the brightest of cookies, but an overall assessment, at least my anecdotal experiences and from my observations, they tend to be a little bit more well-versed when it comes to knowledge. Now, when it comes to the interactions, when it comes to people, that's a different story. But we're not even going to get into that. With Punarvasu here, there's this power of transforming. Jupiter, a lot of planets, Mars, Saturn, these planets deal a lot with transformation. In particular, when we have Punarvasu, one of those wealthy placements. In fact, I think it's got to say wealth on it. Yes, it does. It says wealthy again. And don't even get me started on that again part, because we didn't even talk about why it's connected to the Wheel of Fortune and all that. But we're not going to get to that in this video. We want to stay on track with your personality. So wealthy again. So that not only applies to material wealth. They like the car, they got the houses and things along the lines of that. But there's a while ago, I made this post on Punarvasu, and it had to do more so with this arrow and the satchel here and its symbolism. So the arrow and the satchel symbolism is you shoot the arrow, you pick it up, and you put it back in the satchel again. Similarly, you'll see this theme within these Punarvasu individuals' life, where they will find themselves, like that Wheel of Fortune card, repeating the same circumstances over and over and over again. So what does that have to do with your personality? Well, what has to do with your personality is that you may learn a little bit each time from the same situation. People may feel like you're the type of person who has to go through something multiple times to learn something, in a way that definitely connects with the Six of Pentacles reverse. Upright, the Six of Pentacles is a little bit more balanced, and so they can sort of see things coming. When it's reversed, it's like, okay, I've got to take my time to really understand what is the best way to achieve balance. What's the best way to move forward in the world? How can I best reach my goals while also being generous, while also catering to myself? Six of Pentacles reverse is about that struggle with balance, and thus having to relive those same experiences in order to find that balance. We all have to do this within our lives to some extent, right? Punarvasu falls in some area in your life. It is in the sign of Cancer in Vedic astrology. I think a little bit is in the sign of Cancer in Western astrology too, but that's besides the point here. The point is, people may feel like you're someone who may make some decisions that may not always all the time be wise decisions, but at the same time, you learn a little bit each time. You grow a little bit faster or a little bit more each time. So they may hear like you're dating someone, then you're dating someone new, and they're just like, hey, that kind of reminds me of that same person you dated before who did X, Y, and Z. And things along the lines of that. Or you tell them a story about, I don't know, some trip you took to Europe and you got lost, and they're like, hey, I remember you told me you got lost in whatever grocery store 2 weeks ago. It's like repeating similar experiences, but in different circumstances. So they may feel like there's a lot of circumstances that are recurring over and over and over again in your life. Or quite literally, this could just mean that you repeat yourself, if we're going into just the literal facts for some of you and things along the lines of that. But Universal definitely learns with those lessons. I've definitely seen some connections to astral projection. So obviously we do have that spiritual, otherworldly element to you when it comes to things along the lines of that. I do see a lot of passion within you as an individual, passion towards other people, maybe even people who don't deserve it. And thus you may end up with these knives in your back here with that 10 of Swords. It's like you have to learn to trust the right people. And it can be hard sometimes because sometimes it feels like they may be taking advantage of you, especially with these placements laid out here. So people may feel like sometimes you have a personality that can seem very innocent. One theme that I've seen with Punavarsu is a lot of times people will view them as being very sort of naive. I've seen a lot of stories about Punavarsu's individuals where they're saying, oh, that person's just using you for your money. They're just using you for your connections. They're just using you for this, and X, Y, and Z, right? So people will perceive them to be sort of, I don't know, they kind of look down on them to be a little bit more weak-minded in a way. In my experiences, they're not really unaware of the circumstances that are surrounding those individuals' actions. It would be hard to miss them, right? They would be blind if they couldn't see it. With all these knives here in your back, you can see it. Other people may not perceive that from you. They may feel like, oh, this person just gives and gives and gives. Don't you know that people are taking advantage of you? So people are kind of viewing you from that lens in a way. Even though they know you're smart, they know you have a lot of intelligence. They know that maybe you don't trust easily because of circumstances and things along the lines of that. But at the same time, they still view you through this sort of like softer, naive lens in a way. So I do want to put that out there, especially with the Knight of Wands here, who's young, they're a rookie, right? But they still have that ambition, and they still want to take the initiative, and they still want to move forward based off of what they know and the experiences that they have had. You know, the Knight of Wands is, you know, like I said, they're young, so they are that type of card that will pull an all-nighter, you know, stay up all night, wait to the last minute, and then push through at the finish line. So there may be an aspect to your personality that's a little bit like that little bit of a last-minute planner, having that bit of spontaneity. Sometimes you may struggle with time management. With this here, you may have showed up late more than once, twice, or 3 times. Pile number 4, just want to say that. Coming up here with all of these cards, definitely hit that snooze button a few times. I can definitely see it in the cards. But that is kind of where I want to end it. I don't want to go into a hotel or a hotel. Hotel sounds like I'm saying hotel. A hotel on everything that Punavarsu connects to, and hypnotism, and, you know, astro projection and life after death, and all of these things and themes to deal with Punavarsu and psychic connections and whatever. But we're just going to end it here, and hopefully that resonates. If not, I will just, I don't know, I won't do anything about it. You just won't resonate for you, and you can choose a different pile or a different reader. And anyway, I'm happy you stopped by. So don't forget to check out my community tab. I say this because if you want to ask me a question, I go live every Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and I post a time on the community tab by Tuesday night Eastern Standard Time. And also on that tab, you can find some polls. So if you want to put your input on what readings will be next, all you have to do, is vote on that community tab. And yes, I'm open to comments and suggestions. So yeah, check out that tab. Post your comments. Let me know what you think. I'm very happy that you watched this video. And if you want to become an astronaut, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to like. And I'll see you next time. Au revoir. Hey, pal number 5. Let's get into the part of your personality that people remember most. We got the 5 of Pentacles, the 2 of Cups, the 10 of Pentacles, the 8 of Pentacles, and Puvra Falguni. So it's interesting because the part of your personality that people remember most is the fact that you are unique. You're a little bit different. And maybe you've heard that before, especially when we have this 5 of Pentacles here. Now, there's so many different interpretations, but looking at the overall spread and how things are playing out, what people remember about you is the fact that you may have some values that are typically different from the public. This reminds me of like Bernie Sanders at the inauguration being the only one kind of like sitting down while everyone stands up and claps at Trump. So it's like you're standing outside of the box, right? And it's actually interesting because I think Bernie Sanders is sun in Puva Falguni. So wow, great connection there. But yeah, it's like you stand on business when it comes to what you believe in, what you value, and you're not afraid if that makes you look like the black sheep within the crowd, right? You're like, I don't care. Like, this is not what I believe. This is not what I connect with. And I don't resonate with this energy. It's almost very fearless in a sense. So people remember that about you. They're just like, this person doesn't go with the crowd. This person doesn't follow trends. This person goes by their own set of rules, and they don't care if that makes them a little bit more of like an outcast or a loner, or, you know, people might be more prone to scapegoat you and like blame you for things, with things along the lines of that. But we're not getting into that with this reading. They just remember that about you. You know, if everyone goes left, you tend to go right. That's just like, oh my gosh, this person feels so like a contrarian or something along the lines of that. But not for contrarian's sake, especially when we have the 10 of Pentacles here. This shows me that whatever it is that you believe and you value is generally based on a solid foundation. That you're somebody who has a strong set of values that you don't just believe because somebody told you to believe in it. You believe it because it's based on your experiences, based on your knowledge, based on what you have been informed, based on your conversations with other people, especially with this 2 of Cups. So you come off across as very intelligent here. And we have to remember, with Puva Falguni, the nakshatra, the lunar mansion, it is ruled over by Venus, which is a guru. There are 2 guru planets, which is Jupiter and Venus. Now, all of the planets can teach you a lesson, but these 2 in particular are the teachers. They are the main teachers, and they are also the planets that are known for giving like blessings and more like harmonious and the things that we love. It's kind of interesting. I will say all the planets can sort of do that, but those 2 planets have the reputation for it. They kind of give it the easiest. I'm going to be honest with that. I'll say that. So when we have this energy here, people will also remember that you are somebody who is likely to, in a way, be generous when you can give. I will say with the 5 of Pentacles, it's not like the 5 of Pentacles is stingy. It's just more so like they don't have a lot to offer. But even if you don't have anything like physical to offer, or if you don't have any advice for a situation, like if somebody comes to you with advice and you're just like, oh, I'm not really sure what to do with that, you will still show your support. You'll still give an open and listening ear. The great thing about the 5 of Pentacles and this 2 of Cups combination is it can represent being open and accepting to others. So people will like that you come across as a very non-judgmental vibe. You're not on your high horse. Think about with the 5 of Pentacles here. When we see the card, this person is outcast, they're in the snow, all they have is their connection to each other, and they're not in this high position when in regards to society. So there's no way they could be on their high horse. So you meet people at a eye-to-eye level. You come across as somebody who is not like looking down on them or making judgments about them. You're just here in order to hear what they have to say and to understand their experiences. And because of this, you come across as somebody who is highly knowledgeable. Going back to that Venus guru connection here, that you are somebody who is all about being able to see things from their perspectives in a way, trying to meet them at their level. There's this thing when it comes to Venus, and I've seen it a lot, particularly with Barney Nakshatra. or Barney, I think I got that right. It's the one I struggle with the most, the pronunciation. And it's a Venus ruled nakshatra, similar to Purva Falguni. But Purva Falguni experiences this as well. There tends to be a theme across all of the nakshatras that are ruled by the same planets. So Barney will experience this, Purva Falguni will experience this, Purva Ashada will experience this, but I've seen this a lot with Barney and Purva Ashada. Purva Falguni, sorry, my tongue's going off in another direction. And Purva Falguni, where they're given the opportunity to see things from the other person's perspective. For example, there is like the law for like stop and search. And I actually saw, it was like a Purva Falguni person actually talking about this, where they had, you know, stop and search is mainly to do focused on minorities. That's why there's so much controversial about it. It specifically targets individuals who are black like me, and stops them in the street to just search them. And I'm not sure if the law has been gotten rid of, or if it's just been kind of secretly still being acted. But really, what would happen with the law is at any moment you could be stopped and searched for any reason, and police officers would particularly target black individuals. Anyway, so this Purva Falguni individual who happened to be white, they actually were specifically targeted by the stop and frisk law, and because they were finally going through that experience themselves, they understood just how violating and disturbing this law was, and thus they sort of changed their perspective and became more political and started educating people about the laws and the legal systems and what they were based on and the history. You know how Venusian planets like to go into that history and that having that sort of intelligence behind it. But what I was specifically talking about is the fact that it all has to do with the shoe being on the other foot. They start off with one set of thoughts and beliefs, and they transform, okay, based on their knowledge and based on their experiences. So they may feel like you are somebody who is open to their perspective, meets them at eye level, understands them and what they have been through, even if you haven't been through it yourself, and you like to create an open mind and an open perspective and see things from people's point of view. And as I was mentioning before, with your values, you have strong ones because they are based on reality, they are based on fact, they are based on real world circumstances. That is what all the pinnacles relate to. So it makes you so more open to being able to redefine and change those values, and rechange those values whenever it deems not fitting or unnecessary, or it doesn't really make sense anymore because you've been provided new information. That is what the fives all connect to, would do in change and transformations. Particularly the Five of Pentacles is connected to change and transformations of values and reassessing things. So people remember that about your personality. You're like, you know what? I never really thought of things that way. So thank you for giving me that thought. Thank you for giving me that information. Thank you for providing me that insight. Now I have a fuller understanding of the big picture of things. But when it comes to also the less serious issues and the less so, I guess, formidable, brave, stand on business type of Purva Falguni kind of relates to feeling a little bit artistic, or being very creative, or being in a way like a showmanship. You'll see a lot of Purva Falguni people be in movies, be in art fields, be in entertainment. It makes sense. That's what Venus is connected to. And so when we see all of this, we know that people feel like there's some sense of showmanship to your personality. Maybe you dress in a way that comes across very glamorous, very put together. When it comes to my Black Beauty study, Purva Falguni scored highly in the Sun and the Moon ruled placements for being known as being very attractive. So because we're focusing more on personality, this can be more so attuned to sort of grooming. And especially when I get the Eight of Pentacles, I always get that card to be somebody who's very like particular about how they dress and how they present themselves. So people will remember the things that you wear, your type of hairstyle, how much effort you put into things. They may remember how you do your makeup if you do makeup, or certain things about your appearance and looks, or like mainly to do with how you choose to present those appearance and looks, because that relates to your personality. How you present yourself, or what you feel comfortable presenting yourself as, has to do with your personality. This can also represent having some sort of particular diet, or being particular about what you eat, or even having some sort of like condition like IBS, or whatever the case may be, to do with what you consume and what you put into your body. So that is very on par, especially with Puver Falguni, because as I mentioned, they were very highly placed in my Black Beauty study. And one of the things that they did was have a particular routine when it came to their appearance and how they edit themselves, and wanting to be seen as very attractive and beautiful, and putting the effort in towards that. So people may feel like you're putting a lot of effort in towards your presentation and things along the lines of that. What we also see here with Puver Falguni is there is a need for having some sort of downtime, and that can definitely relate to wanting to just spend time working on yourself, working on your craft, pulling a little bit away. It is known as the hammock. And in my opinion, they are actually very hard workers, but they're more so like, we got to work hard, we got to play hard. It's not all about just like this hard work. We've got to have some fun, and we've got to keep things, you know, exciting, and wanting to be able to relax and not have to be so tightly wound all the time. It's like, let's kick your feet up and let's actually immerse ourselves in the pleasures. When I see Puver Falguni people, one thing that I see about them is sort of like this emphasis on wanting to experience luxury, finer things, having particular taste, having high quality taste, wanting to be surrounded by people of status, or with money, or just people who can give them opportunities to let their hair down and experience unique parts of life. I think it's even written on this card. Is it celebration that they've written here? They wrote creation, okay, but there is an element of celebration going on here, and the next thing under it is enjoyment. So back to what I was saying about being able to let your hair down, being able to enjoy life, being able to celebrate. Okay, it is the Star of Fortune, and it actually is a really great placement for fortune. I believe there was a certain planet here that sort of brought more prosperity when it was in it. I'll have to go back to like my wealth study. I don't even think I published that. Not all of it. I think I published some of it, but there was a specific placement in Puver Falguni that was really great for generating wealth. And when we see all these cards here, we show that one thing that is an aspect that your personality people remember is maybe you even started off in a position that was not ideal, struggling with finances, being in a place where you feel like you can't fully support yourself or don't have the means to support yourself. Heck, you can still even be going through that now. But one thing that people will remember about your personality is that you have an extreme focus on achieving success and ensuring that you can repeat those results and look out for things in the long term. Okay, it definitely becomes about that. This card also does not like to hold back when it comes to aspects of intimacy. They absolutely love and enjoy those areas, and you might even hear them talk about that as well. And there's definitely a sense of charisma when it comes to these placements, but definitely the very strong opinions are there. Obviously, like I said, you keep an open mind and there's a level of intelligence to you. But yes, for the most part, when I see this type of energy come through, it represents having the ability to stand on business, going your own path, being particular about what it is that you are aligning yourself with when that comes to your values and the experiences you have. It's like, I just can't go anywhere. I can't just eat any type of food. I can't just be, see with anyone. I can't dress any type of way. It's like I need to present myself as to the highest of quality. Things along the lines of that is generally what I see here. But overall, these are the things that people remember about you. The fact that you're very detail oriented, the fact that you may even have some sort of craft or hobby that may be interesting, possibly even just having a lot of different accolades when it comes to education. This can also represent, like I mentioned, all of wanting to be generous and share in what you know, or even aspects of just like finances. Maybe you're like that friend that people go to ask for money, and or things along the lines of that. That can be particular to your situations. But that is what I have for you, pile number 5. Hopefully this resonates. If not, feel free to choose a new pile or choose a new reader. I will say you're very forward in your thinking. I've seen some Poover Falguni individuals, like if they were women, they may take the lead and actually propose to their husbands, which is very like, okay, this person is like subverting those traditions or things along the lines of that, or flipping it on its head. And that's something that can be happen, because you have to remember Venus is the only planet that kind of goes backwards. You know, it moves forward, but it spins in reverse. So there is some sort of alternative thinking and being very unique in that way. So that is what I have. And if this doesn't resonate, feel free to choose a new pile, or maybe you choose a new reader. Either way, I'm very happy you stopped by. Don't forget, if you want to ask me a question, I go live every Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. That time is posted on the community tab, Eastern Standard Time, usually by Tuesday night. And I also am starting polls again. I think they should already be started by now. Yeah, definitely they're started. They're started, they're up, they're up, they're up. So don't forget to vote on the polls every Tuesday. I will post that poll as well. So Tuesday, you're getting messages back to back from me on that community tab. So stay informed, stay updated, and stay safe and happy, right? So I will see you next time. Au revoir.